I am Precious Chukudi. We begin with the front pages of the papers, starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with frontline troops, army probes claim of poor feeding. The writer says army takes allegation very seriously, says spokesman adds priority placed on troops' welfare. Supply chain under thorough investigation, adds Chief of Army Staff committed to ensuring troops are well fed, motivated, and equipped. On page 12, 30 drowned in fresh Kebbi boat accident. Why we killed retired Benue jurists, and that's come from gang members. You can see that on page 6. On page 6 still, 8 abducted NYSC members still in captivity, and that's coming from family. Still on page 6, church building collapses in Benue, kills pastor, injures 4 others. SGBV, federal government review of legal frameworks meet critical stakeholder. You can see that on page 3. Stories above, new Senate rule restrict president deputy seats to ranking members. You can read that on page 25. On page 12, tribunal judgment, DSS arrest lady threatening suicide bomb attack on Vice President Ganduje, lead judge Gawuna. And lastly, in front page of Vanguard, we have Pope suggests Catholic Church could bless same-sex marriages. All right, let's move along to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with hurdles for federal government 2024 budget over 10 trillion naira deficit palliative, and we can see an infograph showing the 2022 federal government budget implementation report. Tinubu nominates Balarabe to replace El-Rufai, 2 others. You can read more on page 6. Lawmakers bar first 10 members from Senate presidency. Greener pasture, tackling mass exodus on desert Mediterranean routes. It's a news analysis. You can see that on page 4. 2 children critically injured. Pregnant woman tricyclist die in Lagos auto crash. Shuaibu Perogi dissected Tinubu's Chicago documents. And that's how we can take on the Guardian. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with Tinubu's credentials. APC lampoons Atiku, ex-vice president set to submit a document in Supreme Court. Writer says Atiku journey to Chicago Varsity, a fruitless exercise. Ex-VP a loser, says APC. President's document released by Varsity have vindicated us, PDP insists. On page 8, Minister Tinubu picks Balarabe to replace El-Rufai. Mohbad, police detain Naira Marley. You can see that on page 16. 22 drowned as boat capsizes in Niger, 6 bodies recovered. 2 killed as last mile officials driver clash, local government office raise. You can read that on pages 4 and 5. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we have 17 independent discos get licenses, 10 operational. You can read that on page 17. All right, moving along to the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with agreements with organized labor to cost federal government 2 trillion naira. The writer says how VAT cut on diesel will affect economy. Tinubu's certificate in order, CSU deposes in court. Former students, now Nigeria's president, and the stories above. Senate bars new members from top post. Diphtheria, FCT, 18 states may bring back face masks use. UK, US to partner federal government on marine blue economy. Balarabe, Bio Ibrahim, Olawale for ministerial screening. And that's how we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining, still today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi. Joining me to talk about some of the stories on the front pages are our correspondent, Luminous Jana Mike. He's going to be talking about the Pope suggesting a Catholic Church could bless same-sex marriages. Good morning, Luminous. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, please tell us about more on that story about Pope Francis suggesting that he's open to having Catholic Church bless same-sex marriage.
Okay, on Monday night, essentially, the Vatican released a letter, to churches, detailing that the Pope was asked by some group of cardinals what he thinks about gay couples who come together to seek blessings or prayers from the clergy. So the Pope was express. What the Pope was trying to say essentially was that they are human beings, they are God's children, irrespective of their sexual orientation. When they seek access to God or divine blessings, you as a human being, you as a servant of God shouldn't be a hindrance. You should be able to attend to them. But the Pope also emphasized that it doesn't mean that the church sanctions same-sex marriages. No, the church has still not recognized same-sex marriages. But for the fact that they are humans, they are in need of God's mercy, the church should be more open, the church should be more inclusive of this demographic. So that's just the summary of the story.
All right. Have there been any reactions so far from the Catholic Church or Pentecostal churches?
Yes, actually, there have been reactions. Let me start with the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria. You know, the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria is well structured. It's only the bishops that can actually speak for the church in Nigeria. However, there are officials of the Secretariat who have reacted to this story, but they have done so, anonymously. An official who spoke with me yesterday actually aligned with the position of the Pope that the church should be open. The church should be a place where people run to for mercy. But then the same official also said that before the church can change its stance on same-sex marriages, that the Pope needs to do a lot of careful consultations and then considerations within the broader framework of Catholic theology. So the Pope has not changed anything. The church is simply saying that yes, Pope Francis, each Pope comes on board and then has a set of if it's in government, we say policy trust. Areas you want to focus. Pope Francis has always been consistent with opening the church to all manner of people, making the church more inclusive. So the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria is fully aligning with the Pope on this. But then, the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria has said that just as it is the Pentecostal Fellowship, the Catholic Church is a block under the Christian Association of Nigeria camp. So they are entitled to form their own body of doctrines and tenets. So the Pentecostal Fellowship has said it should just maintain a dignified silence on the issue. So those are the two reactions we've gotten from Christians in Nigeria. Christian Association of Nigeria is an umbrella body. So the Christian Association of Nigeria does not meddle into block issues. CAN is made up of 5 blocks. The Catholic is a block. So this issue is a block issue. CAN is not interested in meddling into block affairs. So that's why CAN has not reacted.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Luminous and Mike, for that report. All right. Moving on to our next story. It's the Senate rules restrict president, the new Senate rule that restricts a president deputy seats to ranking members. And our correspondent, John Alichinu, is going to be telling us more. Good morning, John. Can you hear me?
Morning, madam.
Yes, please go ahead with the story.
Well, the Constitution empowers the Senate, just like it does the House of Representatives, to make rules for itself. It is in the exercise of that power that the Senate yesterday amended its Rule 3 is referred to. The significance of this rule is that before now, when each Senate, if a new Senate comes on board, just like a new National Assembly is proclaimed, every senator or member of House of Rep is considered, they are all considered as equals. In other words, if you are in the old, maybe you are in the, this is the 10th Senate, probably you are in the 9th Senate, and you won an election and became a member of the 10th Senate. Before this amendment, whether you came in as a third or fourth time senator, because each you can aspire to, you can be voted for to become a senator, for as many times as your constituents want for 4 years at each 4-year interval. So all senators are considered equals. So a fresh senator can, depending on his power to persuade other senators, can aspire to become Senate president, and then, if his colleagues vote for him, he becomes Senate president, or deputy Senate president, or speaker, or deputy speaker, as the case may be. We saw that happen with the 4th or 5th Senate, when we had about 5 Senate presidents in quick succession. Ochiba, Kwadibo, Pius, Ayim, and a host of others back then were all first-time senators. They all came in as first-time senators, and extraneous situations made them become Senate president at their various times. So, what this new rule has done is now to restrict the Senate presidency to only people who have at least had 4-year tenure, who have at least served for one term as senators. Because it is considered that you're coming into the Senate for the first time, you are still learning. But then the political undertone, because politicians don't do anything for the fun of it, this coming not at the beginning of the 10th Senate, but coming after what a lot of people considered a coup scare. Coup, not in the military sense, but in a political sense. There were speculations that there was a move to remove Akpabio. Now, his greatest rivals, even from the first time they had their elections in June, were first-time senators. People like Tambua, the former Sokoto State governor, even though he was speaker in the Senate, he's considered a first-timer. Governor Yari also, who was one of the contenders, is also, even though he was in the House of Reps, is considered as a first-timer. So, in an event, a lot of people, people who are insiders say that move to amend that rule is to preclude these two and others like them who might think they will benefit should Akpabio be shown the door at this stage. It comes with also its challenge. We look at a scenario when, if, for example, because there's an understanding in the Senate that if with each Senate or House of Reps, the majority party presents or produces the Senate president or and deputy, if you don't have the Saraki scenario, So now, if in the event you have a new Senate where a new party, like we had the case of Labour Party, comes in with a majority of members, and then this majority of members are first-timers, what happens? It means you have to revisit the law again. But like every piece of legislation, like the laws that govern things we do, they evolve. So it's not ordinarily, yes, you say it's not particularly a bad thing. It's a good thing because a fresh hand might not fully understand the rules. You might be in the House of Reps, maybe for a term or two. You come to the Senate, there are slight differentials in how the Senate conducts its business. So it is expected that for you to make appreciable progress within a short period, you should at least have an understanding of how the Senate works in order for you to be able to give direction to other senators who are coming in for the first time. Yeah. So it's just simply with that rule, we'll see how it plays out. The politics of it is what I had explained earlier. This is happening for the first time. We're still gauging the mood of senators who probably feel this thing is targeted at them, or people who, in the next round of elections, will be looking for coming into the Senate for, and then aspiring to be Senate president. Because some people begin to plan their political trajectory from the bottom. There might be governors who want to be Senate, who want to come to the Senate and become Senate president. There might be people who are on the floor at the moment who are also scheming, like we saw in the fourth or fifth republic, where we had within space of 5 years we had like 5 senators from the southeast when the PDP zoned it from 1999 to around 2003 and slightly towards 2007 when Ken Namani eventually became Senate president and stabilized the Senate. We saw what happened with Chuba Kadibo, Evans Ewenreyem, Adolfo Wagbara, all in quick succession. And for those who are attuned to history, who might have forgotten Nigeria's history, our first Senate president was Nnamdi Azikiwe, although he ruled for just in the 1960s for just a few months before the likes of Orizu and Joseph Wires was in the Second Republic with Shagari and all that. And after then we had the Yocha Ayu where we had a dike with Babangida, Yocha Ayu, and then his kinsman also from Benue before we came to full democracy. It's one of those significant change.
Yeah. From the newbies, have there been any reactions so far on this new rule?
Well, these are political. The reactions are for people outside the Senate. Senators would rarely come out to speak to you on the record when such things happen. Why? If they do, there are certain things the Senate leadership can move against them. It's not an area where you play activist. It's a very conservative chamber, unlike the House of Reps, where you have more youngsters, people who their political career is just taking off. The Senate is more conservative, and then there are channels which you can put through your protests. The most effective is for you to be able to galvanize a majority of your colleagues who you feel will empathize or be sympathetic to the cause that you are championing. But if you stand up, come out and become vocal, you're like, oh, that's the man who probably you have ambitions and they'll cut you to size. And there are various ways of cutting you to size. Some of which you could be denied certain privileges, choice of committees and travels and stuff like that. We have the internal mechanisms of disciplining people. Although we've not had them wield the big stick for a long time. It was under Pius Ayim that the late this man from Imo, Afan Zeribe, was suspended for the rest of his stay, almost for more than a year, by Pius Ayim, who was then Senate president. So some of those powers enjoyed by the Senate leadership, depending on the person wielding it, can actually adversely affect the political career of senators on the floor.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. John Alichinu, for that report.
The pleasure is mine, man.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our next story is on the 8 abducted NYSC members are still in captivity. Telling us more on that story is Egufe Yafubogi. He's going to be telling us more. Good morning, Mr. Egufe. Can you go ahead with the story?
Okay, good morning. Thanks for having me. So it's a story, the pathetic one that has been on since August 17, when those couples were adopted. There were actually about 11 persons in the vehicle on a journey to Sokoto. Their destination was specifically the NYSC orientation camp there. They were like fresh graduates most of them of Akwa Ibom origin. So they were taking a Sokoto State Band bus of the Akwa Ibom State Transport Company. They got to Abuja, spent the night, and as they were proceeding on the journey on that 17, that 217, they were adopted at along the Zamfara Road State Highway. And since then, the issue of ransom negotiation has been on. First, they said they should just bring 10 million. And then the family tried to raise 5 million. After they raised 5 million, there were still issues. And then by the time they were able to make up the 5 million, the adopters raised it to 13 million again, that they needed 3 power bikes added to the cash ransom. And then the family, while they were doing that, and they raised that money again, we now got reports from the family that they had raised the money to 200 million again. And most of these families, 2 widows, they actually include 2 widows, just the women struggling to survive, and they have left their face to God, the face of their children to God since then. And the worry among stakeholders is there is very little being heard from state actors in this matter. NYSC, for instance, at the first instance, raised an issue that they were passing blame, that they were not supposed to be traveling at night. That was the first thing that came from NYSC, and then people were now raising dust over those comments. I think they now started singing different tunes. Even recently, there were media reports that when the thing actually happened, 3 escaped. That made it 8. That has made it 8. Those 8 include the driver of the vehicle. So since then, those 8 have been in captivity, and the negotiation is discreet. It is always difficult to get the families to talk because they are always guided on how far they can talk. So after yesterday, we were able to get to one of the widows and the family, a relative to one of the victims again. And from what they are saying that the kidnappers, the adopters have reduced the ransom to 100 million again. But they are worried that where will they find the 100 million? Because government is not saying a word at all levels, whether at local government, at state, at Akwa Ibom, the Zamfara state where the incident happened, or federal. Nobody is hearing anything. Even the police have been very discreet, very economical with giving information. The last time the Akwa Ibom State Command spoke on the matter, they said efforts were on, they were talking. But the families are worried that none of these state actors is even calling or trying to meet with the grieving families over this matter. There was a report that Wednesday last week they would meet some of the family, but NYSC didn't show up. So this is the update on the issue now. The families are grieving and they are leaving the faith of their children to God and prayers.
So there have been arguments for and against, scrapping NYSC due to, this kind of mistreatment, kidnapping, or exploitation, and all. What do you think about it?
Yes, we had a review on the issue. I think 2 weeks ago before this update now, and the refrain on the voices of respondents was that they should scrap NYSC. So others were a little more reserved, said they should review the way NYSC is being run so that people should have the freedom to decide where they want to serve. Even if people say they want to serve in their home state, that they should decide. But some others who were more critical said if people should be allowed to serve in their state, that means the aim of NYSC is defeated. So the best thing to do at that level would be to scrap it entirely, because it was meant to unify or strengthen the unity of the nation, where a graduate is expected to go outside his own state to serve. In fact, when somebody said, I think a former lawmaker said, when it even started, we were almost not allowed to serve within your geopolitical zone. You were expected, if you were down south, you were expected to go up north, go to the far west or the east to serve. So the people are calling for the scrapping because others are also saying that there should be modification. There are some of these states that you have where they are high risk states, given the general insecurity in the country today. People believe nowhere is actually 100% secure, but there are some states you can mention. When you just mention the name, people are frightened. States like Zamfara, Borno, and all that. So people are saying that NYSC should have thought it wise to close those camps and allow NYSC member, prospective NYSC member who are just coming in, to go as they do now in batches. So people can wait and go in batches to serve in places that are relatively peaceful and safe. Instead of allowing people, so you discover that some of these victims that have been held now, it may be their very first time they were going to that part of the country. Some may not have been there before. And then they are caught and taken to nowhere. They have no idea of where they are being sent. And given the number of days, weeks that they are there now, all these negotiations about ransom, the families are worried. They are worried whether their children are really still safe. Because the last report we did, the penultimate report we did before today's onward, we are hearing that some of them that were allowed to speak to their parents were saying that they should pray for them, or that they are not very sure whether they will survive it, that some of them are feeling sick, they are not being fed well, and all that. So that is the situation for now. People are calling for scrapping of NOS.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Egufi, for that detailed report.
Okay, my pleasure.
All right, let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. And Mrs. is speaking this one. She says she's the CEO of the company. You are going to submit a business proposal. Fine, but what concerns you about her body? And Mr. replies, Mrs. says, I want to know what makes her tick, not what makes her tick. Mr. with the words. All right, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. To find out today's stories, go to our website www.vanguardnj.com to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and thank you for watching.